Captain Peter Cutsey, South Korea. This is my briefing room. We are in Busan, 15,000 feet, getting ready to brief on one of the first items that you'll be doing in a simulator on your ab initio course or type rating course for the Boeing 737NG, and that is accelerate, decelerate, VMO, MMO. I'm sharing that screen with you now. So it's a PowerPoint, one of many that I have in my library that follow the same format. We'll go through a little background first, and then we'll go into the simulator and actually fly it. Let's go and have a look at the sim. Here we are here in cruise. That's our position here, heading south. And we are only 21 nautical miles from the Papa Sierra November VOR, which is to the north of us as we're heading south. So just to give you an idea, and we're at 15,000 feet, as you can see, in 250 knots. So let's go back to the other screen, and we'll get talking a little bit about the PowerPoint. The acceleration to and deceleration from will be demonstrated today using the autopilot because I'm by myself in the sim. Your instructor will actually have you manually fly and direct you how to use the auto throttles in what we're going to do. So that's what this is all about here. And we'll go back to main menu and the few definitions of VMO and MMO. They are part of the lesson, and you've taken that in ground school. So VMO is 340 knots for the Boeing 737 NG and Mach 0.82. The acceleration to VMO, what we'll do is we'll begin the maneuver at the existing cruising speed. Here we are at 250 knots, existing cruising speed, with the auto throttles connected. So if we go back to the sim, and let's have a boo here. So the auto throttles are connected, and how do we know they're connected? Here we have MCP speed. So this is auto throttle, this is roll mode, and this is pitch mode. And we have on the mode control panel the auto throttle arm switch is on. All right. All of these terms we're going to teach you if you join our aviation group once we get going here in South Korea. Set the command speed to VMO. So we'll move the airspeed bug up to VMO, which is 340 knots. As the speed increases, because it will, because the auto throttles are engaged, we want to observe the following. Of course, if you're manually flying and you increase speed, the aircraft will pitch up, and you'll have to trim forward, like in any airplane. So we have the autopilot engaged, and we'll hear the trim wheel moving, and we can actually see it moving to compensate for the increase in speed. So that's what we're going to observe, because if we were flying the aircraft manually, we would have to trim it ourselves, nose down. All right. the handling qualities during acceleration, how the airplane handles. Remember that the faster the speed, the more sensitive the flight controls. So you're manually flying, you're using the elevator to keep the nose up. So you'll notice that. And your instructor will point that out. And you'll also notice the auto throttle protection as we approach VMO. As a matter of fact, we'll even go over VMO. We'll set the bug to higher, and the auto throttle shouldn't go, go beyond the speed. In other words, the speed control should not exceed 340 knots with the auto throttles engaged. That is a protective feature. Then as the instructor, I'll turn off the auto throttles, and with the thrust levers uh, commanded, I should say, with the command speed being higher, we'll actually exceed the speed. So we'll make sure that we move the thrust past the thrust setting that we had with the auto throttles on, and with the protection removed, we'll actually exceed VMO and we'll hear the clacker. All right, these are the things that we're going to do and experience. That's for the acceleration up to VMO. And uh, the at a stabilized speed just below VMO, your instructor will have you manually fly, uh, maintaining altitude. We won't do that today because of why I mentioned I'm by myself and the autopilot is in use. So the aircraft is very sensitive. If you're turning and you know that in any turn in any airplane, you're going to have to use a slight amount of back pressure as you increase bank, depending on your speed and many things. These are the things we talk about in the school you're going to join to get your brain thinking about what aviation is all about. We have our own language. It's in English, but we have our own terms. So that's what we do at this new school for teenagers. So we won't do this because of what I just mentioned. Uh, and then we'll reduce the thrust levers to idle. And that'll go into the deceleration and set the command speed to 250 knots and then time how long it takes and how far we actually travel. And we'll point that out because of what I've done in the FMC so you can see it. Then that's decelerating to 250 knots. And of course, you're going to have to trim the opposite way. In manually fly, you'll have to trim up because the nose wants to drop as you're slowing. All right. These are all basic aerodynamic uh, functions that we will teach you in the classroom, and then we will experience them in the simulator on a large screen in our training center, and then you can practice at your individual stations below with my guidance. So when you come to your aviation school, how many times a week we will decide, this is what you're going to experience, an introduction to aviation using an larger type airplane, a jet aircraft with new technology. And the one specifically we're talking about to start with is the Boeing 737 new generation. All right. So let's kind of go and do that. Now that we've talked about it, we'll pop over to the simulator and we're inside the flight deck. We're frozen. And the picture I've drawn here, what we'll do is I'll fly the airplane onto this track and we'll come inbound towards the VOR, and we'll go through those maneuvers. All right, let's unfreeze the simulator. And while we are actually doing this, I will chat to you of what's happening. This is us, the airplane symbol. The tip of the triangle is the airplane symbol. We're 250 knots, and we'll put the flight path vector on so we can see it. There it is here, that little airplane, and it's on the horizon. That's the horizon line. That's us, the airplane, our airplane symbol, the center of the airplane. And all these little markings are 2.5 degrees. So right now we're pitched up at 2.5 degrees. Actually a little more, 2.8. Oh, 2.8. Whoa, that's an angle of attack indicator. And it should be the same as the pitch angle of level flight. Wow, we're going to learn all about that when you come to our training center. All right. So we're going to go down to the mode control panel. The mode control panel is here, and that panel. And I'm going to turn the aircraft. Right now this is the roll mode on the FMA, and this is how we turn the airplane with the autopilot engaged. So watch what happens when I roll that. Wow. The heading bug moves. That's the heading bug. To a heading of, we'll say 272, which is 90 degrees to this course. Do you have to understand math? Yes, you have to understand math. Do you have to be a genius? No, you don't have to be a genius. What do you have to become a pilot? You have to want it more than anything, and be willing to study the way I do every day. 72 years ago I started, and I'm still studying. Okay. How old am I? I'm 150 years old. That's a joke. So now we're going to turn to intercept, and those little lines in front are called trend vectors. The first one is 90 seconds ahead of the airplane. The second is 60 seconds ahead of the airplane. And then the first tip right there is 30 seconds ahead of the airplane. So I want to capture that line because we know it's correct. So I'm going to go into a mode here called arm. So I arm that, make sure the bar light comes on, and come up here and check. It was white, but now when it captures for 10 seconds, it goes green. Ah, so we've captured that. And now that we've captured it, and the course that we wanted was 002, we will set the course of 002 as a backup. 360 degrees in a circle. Once we get to 360, it's 000. Okay. Well, this is the end of part 1 for acceleration, deceleration to and from VMO, MMO. Look for a continuation in part 2, where we'll talk more about the exercise and also talk about raw data. Thanks for watching. This is your briefing room.